Welcome back to the channel. Um, this topic here is kind of a touchy subject. Some people might not like it. Some people will understand it, but it's something that needs to be addressed, and it's pertaining to Mexican Americans or Mexicans using the N-word, or as they say, acting like they're black because they rap a certain way, or a way they talk, or a way they walk. Now, I might piss some people off, but I might talk some sense into some people also. Now, the reason why I'm going to talk about this is because I had a lot of problems when I got to prison for how I walked or how I talked. I don't know. To me, it was normal. I was normal. Now, a long time ago, I was born and raised on the west side of Fresno. And anybody that knows about Fresno and knows the history of Fresno, they know on the west side in the 70s and 80s, it was all black. Very few Mexican families. I would say a handful. And back then, I lived off Martin Luther King before it was Martin Luther King, back when it was Fig. I lived in the Westgate Department or projects, the King of Kings. It's a lot different there now. So anyone that doesn't know about it probably wouldn't understand. But I grew up with all black friends, a handful of Mexican friends. So when I got to prison in the feds, it's a lot different than the state. In the feds, you really didn't have these racial lines like they do in the state. There's more communication in the feds. There's more free will back then, at least. I don't know about now. So people pretty much talked who they wanted to and did what they wanted to do to a certain point. Now, me growing up, I played basketball. And that's all I wanted to do was play basketball. So when I got to the feds, I didn't change who I was. I still act the same. And here's where the problem started. There was this thing, an issue, that the dudes from down south had with me. And that issue was me playing basketball. Now, I didn't change who I was. I still did what I wanted to do. When I got there were Northerners there, a lot of Southerners, and me. And the reason why I say me is because I knew about the conflict that Fresno was having with the North in the state. Now, although the North accepted me, I still knew where I stood, and I still kept my distance. Now, the dudes from down south understood me, how I carried myself, because I showed them that I was from up north, but me and these other dudes from up north were different. And the reason why I say different is because the conflict that was going on in the state with Fresno and the Norteños, you know, they knew I was basically running solo. As a matter of fact, they didn't like it because I was doing what I wanted to do. And I was willing to defend my own honor, not on behalf of the North, but on behalf of me, on behalf of Fresno, what we represented. Now, I remember this time with this dude from down south. He was in my building. He mentioned something about me playing basketball. And I told him, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And that's just how I do it. Now, I was still green behind the ears, so to speak. But I was still about that action. And they knew that. They knew I was going to handle mine. I mean, I was young, didn't know much about prison. But I was still about mine. And I was going to carry mine the way I wanted to carry it. And people who wanted it can come and get it. You know, when you're my age right now and you look at a 18, 19-year-old, it's just a number. It's a youngster. But at that age, I wasn't stupid. You know, I knew how to fucking chunk them. And I would chunk them with anybody. It didn't matter if they were 30, 25. You know, if they wanted it, they can come and get it. Even nowadays, I'm in my 50s. And I'll still chunk them. Because I'm as young as how I feel. And I used to have problems with that. Because they used to say I was acting black. Now, if you looked at me, you look at me now, there's nothing about me that says I'm acting black. Maybe because of the way I talk, or the way I walk, or because I like basketball. But I played sports with black kids my age growing up. Baseball, football, basketball, wrestling, soccer, you know. And that's who I was. And that's who I am. So when I hear these stories now of these rappers acting black, these rappers from down south acting black, that's what they say, they're acting black. I don't see no problem with it because they're being themselves, just like I was being myself. You know, I look at it as a way people are brought up. I don't look at it as you're Mexican, you're supposed to act Mexican. What is a Mexican supposed to act like? Now me, if I saw somebody that had a derby on with some big ass pants, some shiny shoes, a Pendleton on, you know, growing up, I saw it because my older siblings were down with that style, but I wasn't. And to this day, I'm not. You know, people say it's a culture thing, but it's not a culture thing. It's just a way of life for some people. You know, Mexicans using the N-word, like I said, there's a difference. And this difference was told to me by black people that I met in prison. There's a difference when you use ER and GA at the end. You know, because ER meant a whole different thing. You know, GA, it was just the way people talk. The lifestyle they're brought up in, the area, their friends. You know, it's not about somebody acting like they want to be somebody else. You know, and I had to fight for that shit. And I had no problem with it. Whether it was the way I carried myself, the way I walked, the swag that people use nowadays, It's not swag. It's just how people are. I carried myself the way I carried myself, and I was willing to defend it. And not to speak highly of myself, but, you know, motherfuckers was getting put on their ass for coming at me sideways, you know, and it doesn't get old. It doesn't get old for 1 minute, because I still carry myself the same way as I did back then. And I'll still put motherfuckers on their ass, you know. So when I hear this talk about these people acting like they're like the other people, to me it's stupid. And only one area has a problem with it. And that area is the dudes from down south. See, the dudes from down south, they didn't like me because the way I walked or the way I talked or the way I carried myself. You know, it wasn't about me from being up north. It wasn't about me from being from Fresno. It was the way I talked and the way I walked and who I spoke to. And I would go on that basketball court and I would play with blacks. And quiet as kept, people might not know this, but when I was in state prison this last time, a few years ago, me, a couple other dudes from Fresno, and some dudes from LA, we used to play basketball, and we played against the blacks. And when we played against the blacks, I wasn't representing who I was. I was doing something that I wanted to do, that I used to like doing. And the competition was there. But that day when we played against the blacks, the whole yard was out there, surrounded the basketball court. You had Mexicans on one side, whites on one side, and blacks on the other side. And it was just a competition. It was a game that at that point, maybe some people saw it as a racial thing, but us that was playing basketball saw it as a game. And not one faction had a problem with it. You know, it was a game that was played on the court, excuse me, and nobody had a problem with it. And it was a good ass game because I ball, and the dudes that I was playing with, they were ballers also. The Southsiders that I was playing with on the team, they were ballers. Shout out to Joker from IE, that motherfucker can ball. And I knew that if we weren't in prison and we were on the street, he would ball with black people, against black people all the time. It was a political thing. And it's a political thing now that people are trying to use on the streets with these rappers that are doing their thing, doing it in a different way than what some people are used to. And now they're being labeled as trying to be black. You see, when I was growing up, you couldn't have a fade because the dudes from down south were saying it was a buster cut. You know, but now I see all these dudes with fades. First, they didn't like us because they said we're trying to be black. Then they didn't like us because of our haircuts. You know, they didn't like us because the way we talked. Now they're talking like that. You know, and now they're being labeled as trying to be black, saying the N-word. The N-word is a word that people say when they're talking to people that are like them, not skin color, but as far as like them. You know, they grew up doing the same things, doing the same shit, saying the same shit. So what happens when you grow up and you're in a certain environment? That's how you're gonna be raised, and that's who you're gonna be. So it's not about people saying the N-word. They're saying Mexicans can't say the N-word. Where I was raised, black people had no problem with me saying the N-word. But there's a difference. I wasn't saying the ER. I was saying GA, nigga. Those is my niggas. And to me, they would call me their nigga. you know. And yeah, you heard it from me. I just said it. And black people from where I'm from that were raised with me, they had no problem with it. I can tell them, what's up, my nigga? You know, there was no joking about it. There was nothing racial about it. Those is my niggas, and I was their nigga. You know, and I'm hearing these rappers being labeled as, you know, different shit for saying the word nigga. What do you expect them to say? The music they listen to, they say it. The people they hang around with, they say it. You know, just one certain group don't like it because they have a certain lifestyle that they grew up in, that they're accustomed to. You know, like I said, the Pendletons, the big ass pants, the shiny shoes, the derbies, that shit don't fascinate me. And I'm Mexican. And my siblings dress like that, but not me. The swag that people say people have nowadays, the swag. What is swag? That's what I want to understand. People say, oh, they got that swag. You know, swag is just another label that people are getting placed with because they walk a different way, they talk a different way, they carry themselves a different way. Now, this is a subject that I can actually speak from the heart. And like I said, it's going to piss some people off, but I don't give a fuck. You know, those that know me, they know how I carry myself. And they know that, you know, what I'm saying is the truth. You know, see, I was born and raised with black people, you know, and I was brought up a certain way. I wasn't brought up to be racist. I was brought up to be who I am. And these people that are rapping, saying nigga, they're being who they are. And I think it's about time motherfuckers need to stop talking about this shit because it's stupid. Everybody's trying to find a label to put on somebody, and they don't know nothing about that person. They don't know how they grew up. They don't know who their friends were. They didn't know, you know, how they were raised. You know, motherfuckers need to just set that shit aside and let people be who they want to be. Don't label them, you know, as being something and they're not. Everybody doing this labeling, you need to look at yourself. Not everybody is supposed to be like you. As a matter of fact, everybody that was born in the United States, look on your motherfucking birth certificate. It's not going to say you were Mexican. It's not going to say you were African American. It's not going to say nothing. You know, it's going to say that you're white. You know, and an African American person is going to say they were black. Those are labels put on by the government. You know, so if anything, that shit is racist. Not how you walk, not how you talk, not how you look at somebody. That shit is racist. They label you. You know, not the people from the streets, not from your friends, not from the people from your area, from your hood. You know, people grow up who they're going to grow up to be, and that's it. You know, so what if they use nigga? You know, they ain't meaning nothing racist by it. There's a difference. And you motherfuckers that are labeling these people, you should look at the fucking history. You know, just because you're Mexican and you're saying nigga doesn't mean that you're racist. Or when you're black and you call a Mexican person, a Mexican American person, you call them nigga. What's wrong with that? That's how they grew up. That's how we grew up. That's how I grew up. And people that need to just stop talking about this because people are being who they are. You know, and if anybody has anything to say to these people, you need to just step to them. Step to them and let them know. You don't got to put it on fucking social media. You don't got to do your interviews, your podcast. Fuck that. That's bullshit. You know, because all you're doing is putting fuel on the fire. You're trying to stir shit up that doesn't need to be stirred up. You know, everybody's not supposed to grow up the way you want them to grow up. Everybody's not supposed to dress the way you want them to dress. Motherfuckers can dress how they want. They can talk how they want. They can walk how they want. And it's just stupid that I'm even talking about this now, but it's something that has to be said because people that don't know will never understand. And people that keep putting these labels on people, you're the problem. You know, if somebody wants to talk a certain way, let them talk a certain way. Stop trying to label them. You know, and another thing is these people that are from other states besides California. California, the West Coast don't have no problem with people saying nigga. The West Coast don't have no problem with people talking or acting or walking the way they want to walk. It's a certain group of people that have a problem with it. So don't label all West Coast as being that problem. Say who the group is that have an issue with the way you walk or the way you talk, not the West Coast. We don't have a problem with that. Everybody don't. It's one area that does. It's one group of people that does. You know, so address it to them. Don't say the West Coast don't like this, the West Coast don't like that. Nah, don't label all of us like that. Because we ain't all like that. All Mexicans from the West Coast don't have to be in big ass pants and don't have to have a Pendleton or a derby on or some sunglasses at night. We ain't like that. Only certain people are. Don't say the West Coast. Don't put everybody in that shit because, hey, we ain't with that shit. Most of us understand what you're talking about. Most of us understand how you walk, how you talk. It's just the way you were raised, and we understand that. Some of us don't. So that some doesn't speak for the whole West Coast. I just wanted to throw that out there before I end this video. So whether I pissed anybody off or whether I made people think about time somebody said something, it's not about, proving anybody right or wrong. It's about letting everybody know. It's just the way we grow up. It's just the lifestyle that we live. It's not a culture thing. It's a us thing. This is what we were born and raised with, and this is how we're going to be. It's no culture thing. It doesn't say blacks have to act one way, Mexicans have to act one way, whites have to act one way. It doesn't say nothing like that. Now that shit is going back to the racist days where it says blacks drink from here and whites drink from here. That's exactly what you guys are doing. There's no culture thing in this. There's no culture thing in the way you walk or the way you talk. It's a you thing. It's a us thing. It's be who you are. When you're raised in a certain way, that's what you're gonna be. When you see certain things, that's how you're gonna be. It's not a culture thing. It's a us thing, a human thing. It's a it's a thing where people are just who they are, and you can't change them. You can't change the way they walk, the way they talk. When you get in prison, you can put them in certain sides of the yard, but you're still not changing them. You're still not going to change the way they walk, the way they talk. Now if you do, then that's you're being racial. So with that being said, if you like the video, hit the like, subscribe, comment. If you don't like it, hit the dislike. I don't give a fuck. I'm out. Peace.